The Creative Colosseum would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on treaty land, referred to as Treaty 4 territory, and that all people here are beneficiaries of this treaty. Treaty 4 encompasses the lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect and honor the treaties that were made on all territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we are committed to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous nations in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad, you?
Good, and welcome to the Creative Colosseum podcast.
Yes, this is our first ever live stream / episode / anything. I will say real quick though, before we move on, that this was a podcast prior. So this is a kind of a reiteration of the old podcast. So,
a reimagining. So it's not literally the first episode ever.
No, it's not. No, first episode with this new format with myself, David
and
Roman.
Twitch.
Yes, and Twitch. First time with Twitch. Yes, my name is David Roman, by the way, too. And
I'm Allysia. I am a host of a YouTube channel called Piano TV, and I write stuff and I write music. I have a band called The Criminal Kid, and right now I'm working on an honors paper for my philosophy degree. So there's a lot of different stuff. What are you up to, Dave? What's your deal?
Yeah, what am I up to? This is a good question. Well, I work at the Regina Public Library. I'm doxing myself already, but that's okay. You know this is
30 seconds.
And also that this is broadcast in Regina, Saskatchewan already. You'll see in the credits. But anyway, I'm like a digital media specialist. So I work with people, helping them with their creative projects, and I do a lot of like tech support. But I also like to learn that myself too. So I get to kind of learn that way. And then I'm still doing freelance music production for people. But my background was more film production, music production. Like I did a lot of that for a lot of years with a company called Roman Empire Studios. Yes.
Hence the Roman theme.
So
today's topic is one that's going to be particularly close to your heart, I think, in that spirit. It's the making the case for creative collaboration.
Yes.
So this is something that we'll get into shortly. We're just going to take a moment to introduce you to our sponsors, which, spoiler alert, is going to be ourselves. I just wanted to also remind you that you can follow us on YouTube, on Twitch, Instagram, Facebook, basically anywhere that you access your podcasts. Please feel free to give us a like, give us a follow, and we'll hopefully have many fun podcast adventures with you. Hey there, this is Allysia from Piano TV. I'm a piano teacher, and I've got a bunch of videos up on YouTube if you want to check those out. I also host free monthly webinars on a variety of piano-related topics and make courses about learning piano, whether you're a complete beginner or if you're an intermediate level student. If you are interested in staying up to date with the things I've got going on, you can visit pianotv.net and join my mailing list, where you will also receive a free ebook on how to practice the piano. The courses that I offer open for registration in August, and they run from September to April, where you'll join a group of like-minded individuals and receive personal feedback from myself. Whether you're 29 or 92, it's never too late to learn.
Wow, that was a fantastic ad. No, I'm just kidding. They're going to see sponsor-wise. I mean, obviously your company and my company are the sponsors of the program. So yes, you will see another ad from me later in the stream as well. Well, for those of you listening to the podcast, you won't, but yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So today's topic, making the case for creative collaboration.
Creative collaboration.
We have no love for alliterations, as you can tell.
None.
So the idea that I want to get into today, especially I want to talk to Dave about this, because Dave is particularly good at collaborating with people, and this is something that I personally struggle with. So I am afflicted with what we shall refer to henceforth as the lone wolf syndrome, where I want to do everything myself. I run my business myself. I teach piano on my own. I have this tendency to do everything solo, even when I brush up against all of the limitations that entails. So I wanted to, just my own kind of selfish desire of this podcast, is I wanted to talk to Dave about this and just see how I can become a little bit better with, just working with other people. And actually this podcast is a great example of an attempt in that direction.
Yes, this is definitely like this is, I mean, here's the thing. I've been a lone wolf myself quite a bit, actually, even though I from the outward, I guess I look like I collaborate all the time with people, but I did it more as a job, right? Personally, in my personal art, that is something that I feel like as I've gotten older and kind of more experienced with the things I'm doing, I've definitely gotten more focused on being solo too and being lone wolf. The most recent thing I did that was a bigger push was this band called Femme Fragile, well, band. And there was two of us at the start, right? And two of us did all the work. So I was able to collaborate at least in that sense. But yeah, no, typically I'm like the kind of person who, music-wise opens up Ableton Live by myself, does everything by myself, finishes it by myself. Well, maybe finishes it. And then that's it. So yeah, so definitely I'm somebody who I really value collaboration, but maybe it's time for me to get back to collaborating. And this podcast is a good way to do that in a way that's, there's nothing like specifically artistic about this. That's like, it is artistic, but it's not like we're not like writing something emotional or something. So it's a little easier, I think, when you have two people who are like lone wolves to come together in something like this and collaborate than it is to like do that in like a full album or something like that. Right.
So, and one of the major drawbacks, which is probably really obvious of being a lone wolf, is that you just can't be good at everything. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So my own limitations, I think that I have very few strengths. My strengths with music in particular are largely in writing melodies and writing lyrics. But in terms of arranging the songs, I play piano. That's it. I'm not on Ableton. I don't even know how to say that sentence. On Ableton, as though it's some kind of social. It's not. I don't know how to do the Ableton. I don't know how to play guitar. I don't know how to do drums. I've never learned these things. So I will never be able to publish music in a meaningful way unless I collaborate.
Right.
And it just is not worth the enormous amount of time investment to become good at all those things just so that I can make music on my own.
Yeah, 100%. It took me a long time to get to the point where I feel like I was comfortable enough to do something on my own like that musically. Like I've suffered for years, honestly. Like I did. Like when I say suffer, I really mean that. Like it was a lot of like opening up a program, working on it, getting frustrated, closing it, day in and day out, opening up a book, reading it, getting frustrated, closing it. Like, it took me a long time to feel where I am today. And even today, I'm still like at points where, I'm doing my own thing. I feel like I'm doing a lot of work. So it's a heavy lift. And I've been really psychologically working on just accepting that and just trying to be, just enjoying whatever it is, and not getting so caught up in like, oh my gosh, I'm not there yet. Or what am I going to do with this after it's done or that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, like even as somebody who's proficient in that, I still struggle a lot with doing it. So, the one benefit to collaborating and to not being a lone wolf is the idea that somebody else is doing some of the work, right? And with this podcast is a good example of that. Like it was a heavy lift to get it started today, but I
significantly heavier lift on your end than mine, just to get all the technology going.
Yeah, there's definitely a heavy lift in that. I mean, at the same time though, you were taking some pieces off of me that I would have had to do too, right? And I think it wouldn't have started with such precision today. Just tooting my own horn here, but honestly, like I feel like we're well formatted today because of having two people jumping on it rather than one, and even just making creative decisions about, okay, there is creativity, I guess, but making creative decisions about what the podcast is going to be, how it's going to look, the format, like those are things you also took some of the mental burden off of too, right? So yeah, I mean, if you need like the case for creative collaboration, I mean, this is kind of a good example of why it's good to collaborate, why it's yeah.
Right, because not only are you distributing the burden of labor so that you're not stretched so thin yourself, but there's also a not insubstantial portion of energy that comes from working with someone else. When you're on your own and doing your own project, you have to constantly be summoning the enthusiasm for that project. But when you work with other people, and this is most poignantly my experience in being in a band, is that's what keeps it going. The momentum is because of the collaboration. And actually, so in Piano TV, that's the YouTube channel that I have, and I've been doing it since 2015. And I started it in 2015 with my friend. And my friend did Logan.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, he did all of the editing. I did all the planning and the filming, and I made the content for it. He did all the video editing on that side of it. And I would not have had the channel if it were not for that collaboration. And again, it wasn't only because of the the productive labor being spread out a little bit, which helps enormously. It was just that sort of continued enthusiasm, because I knew that if I lost my motivation, I would still do it anyway, because he was, prepared
Right.
to do the work. So those moments where you're just going to throw in the towel become way less common if you're collaborating, right?
Yeah.
On your own, you're like,
No, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's something I definitely experienced with the last music project I did with Femme Fragile, right? Like, even though I was doing all the music, so I mean, that was a pretty heavy lift on its own. You're right. The enthusiasm for the project, there was times when Shalyn, who was my creative partner, would jump in, do certain things, and be pumped about us online or whatever it was, something that could keep the kind of energy moving forward. And that's really notable for one big reason, is that both of us also had like mental health stuff that's pretty severe at times. So we've talked about it on other podcasts, actually. So it was notable for us because neither of us on our own seemed to be really good at keeping the energy alive for super long periods of time sometimes, right? So and it is something that, like, I think wanting to talk about this today, I feel like, it is something I really wanted to work through mentally, because I'm really struggling creatively to put things out of my own accord, not other people's stuff, just my own stuff. I have been for years now. So even though I did get one album out, like, to me, like, considering how much I've actually done and how much is actually sitting on my hard drives, that's not a lot, like it's a big deal, but it's something to celebrate, but it's not. Like, I'm not kidding. I have like hundreds of things I just have never put out in any capacity, whether it's video, audio, anything, right?
Well, you have to have an enormous self-discipline to consistently publish things on your own. And not all of us can be like some genius from Königsberg or something like that. We all have to, I don't know, maybe work with each other a little bit more, because most of us are just not that disciplined. Like you said, it's not even always a discipline issue. It can be a mental health issue.
Yeah.
Because some of us maybe are smooth sailing consistently, but a lot of us aren't. Yeah. And in those rocky periods, it's the team that's going to help the project keep going, not the individual.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, that's just it. And yeah, like the other thing to add to that too is, on top of the mental health thing, is like, as we get older too, there's other commitments that come into play, right? Like we both of us have kids, babies, right? You have partners that you need to invest time in. For me, not even just because of chronic issues, but like health does decline as you get older. Like, it's just reality, right? So energy levels do kind of dip a bit, and you can't really. I just think about when I was in my 20s, building my company and working on music and doing things like that. Like, I'm just grinding so damn hard, and I wouldn't recommend people do that. Like, don't grind until you're in the ground. Like, don't do it. It's awful. I'm paying for it still, but like, I remember doing that and being able to just do that, right? Being able to like be out till 4 a.m. And
do you remember the days of performing shows and staying until like the last person's gone and you're still there, and you have to take all your equipment home and you're still like amped up, and just doing that like regularly? I can't imagine that lifestyle anymore.
Yeah. It's I do remember it. I miss it sometimes. Like, I think about it.
I do too.
But I'm also like kind of like relieved in some ways too. Like, it's like I seem to go back and forth between that. Like, I watch, and this is kind of crazy, maybe I shouldn't ever compare myself to like professional artists who are doing this, but you watch some like really old artists, and they're not people I listen to necessarily, but like AC/DC or like Rolling Stones or things like
Gene
that.
Simmons.
Yeah. And they're like still out on tour, still performing for hours. And it seems like the older you get, you perform longer, like a lot of these bands, right? So they're still out there doing
3 or 4 hour shows. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And like, I don't know how they do that. Like, is it just some kind of drug? Like, I don't know. Like what? I don't know. I don't know how they do that, because I am 42 years old, and yes, I have chronic illness, but I can't even imagine.
That would be the extreme exception rather than the norm, though. I would say the vast majority of artists who are in their heyday in their 20s and 30s are just not going to be doing things in their 70s and 80s. It's like a small handful of people can pull it off.
Yeah, that's just it. Yeah.
So I wanted to maybe start this off, not that we haven't already started. But I wanted to get into something that I think might be worthwhile to bring up for a first episode and also relevant to collaboration. How did we come about to collaborate with each other? How did we meet? I have my side of the story, which is probably also different than yours. So I'm curious, like, what's the origin story here?
The origin story. So yes, this is kind of like a podcast origin story as well as like we wouldn't be doing the podcast today if that hadn't happened, right? So, but anyways, so I remember hearing about you from a mutual friend, from Rob Hillstead. Shout out Rob Hillstead if you're lurking anywhere. There's somebody lurking over there, I know. But anyways, so I remember hearing about you, and Rob had kind of discovered you, quotes unquotes, like I don't know how he had met you, but
that's a fun story.
Yeah, right. That's a whole other origin story.
Not for today though.
But anyways, and so he would start talking about how he was like jamming with you and stuff, and that you were fairly young and new and hadn't really done a lot yet, and I think the biggest thing he talked about, honestly, was like your shyness and like how like, you wouldn't even look at people when you were singing or things like that, right? So
I wouldn't even sing.
You wouldn't even sing?
Not for like the first year.
Really?
I don't know why I was in that band. I played keyboard. That probably got me away with some things. I liked having chats with Rob and so on, but I was too shy to sing for
That's
like
wild.
the first year that I was in a band where I was the singer. Yeah, that's
Yeah. So yeah, right. So I mean, like that's a huge deal when you think about it. But the fact that you stuck around,
the fact that I was kept around,
in fact, you were kept around even too. So obviously there was something there that he saw. Hey, this is worth spending time with, right? Nurturing. And so actually that kind of connects to me. So I mean,
well, and how did you know Rob? Right.
Yeah. Right. And so, I mean, obviously I knew Rob from high school. I've known him forever. So, I mean, him and I've just always created things, which I do dearly miss you, Rob, if you're listening or watching or anything. I wish we were still creating, but he lives in Vancouver.
Doing very fancy film things.
Right?
Yep.
So yeah, you do lose collaborators sometimes too, the key collaborators in your life. Anyways, yeah. So, I mean, obviously he saw something that was worth investing in. I didn't really get to know you until much later. I was playing in a band called The Criminal Kid, and go check it out on Spotify because it's Alicia's current project. I don't know if how deep we're going to get into that lore, but anyways, I was playing in this band, and I was trying to transition out of it in some ways. Like I know we were looking for a new singer, but I think in the back of my brain, I was like, I have a kid on the way. I'm really busy. I need to be around for this kid. I'm trying to build a company. There's no way I can do this at the same time because we were getting to the point where the band was doing really complicated things timing wise and music wise. And it was like all of my creative energies were just being sucked into the band. It was great music. But so we were looking for a new singer, and I don't know if we reached out to you or I can't remember if you contacted us, but we did post out there that we were looking for somebody, and you became one of the people that auditioned. So that's kind of how we met.
And then I absorbed The Criminal Kid.
You absorbed The Criminal Kid.
Eventually, yeah.
I want to stop right there though, too, because I'm curious to see before you got The Criminal Kid.
Yep.
So like, what was because obviously there's more story to this after that, but
So Dave, you were like a mythological creature before I had ever met you, because I was friends with Rob, as were you, and I had heard Rob talked about you a lot. So I'd heard a lot of the legend of Dave, and how you were this really talented singer and lyricist, and I'd heard some of the stuff that you guys had done, and you seemed impossibly cool to me before I'd ever met you. I was like, funny. Who is this like super cool, deep thinker who's writing all these awesome songs? But yeah, I didn't meet you for many, many years until after that point had passed.
Yeah.
And then I think really we probably just met through The Criminal Kid, and one of the things that I remember from back in that day was just having like a lyric session at a coffee shop with you, like fairly early on in our friendship, where we're just going through the lyrics of the new album. Yeah.
And so I will add to that part because that's
part that I don't remember.
Yeah. So I mean, we have selective amnesia when we get older, but no. But yeah, so I remember we met at a coffee shop. It was a place called Atlantis Coffee. RIP Atlantis doesn't exist anymore. And
I think it became a Brewed Awakening.
Yes, it's a Brewed Awakening.
Yeah.
So Brewed Awakening is a local chain for those of you who don't know, and it's still there. Actually, it's still I still jump in there now and then. But anyway, this coffee shop was well known for like creative people showing up and hanging out and doing work on their laptops and, having meetings and things like that. And as well, probably downtown business people too. But for me, I framed it as a place for creatives to hang out. So anyways, we met there. It was an evening at some point in time. This was right before you were about to record your first full-length album with Criminal Kid. And I was a producer on it. I don't know. I always think it's funny that I was a producer, but anyway, and so we were discussing the lyrics of your album, the recording, all that kind of stuff. And I don't remember all the specific details, but I do remember the feelings of the evening. And there was something about, it's like I could tell you had a bit of like a performance block or some kind of creative block where you hadn't quite given all of your psyche over to it, or you hadn't quite like.
The shyness lingered.
The shyness lingered. Yeah. There was a little bit of like performance anxiety or a little bit of discomfort putting yourself out there, something along those lines. And I don't know how I did it, but I spent a lot of time just talking to you about your lyrics and about some of the, I don't want to say trauma, but maybe some of the emotional blocks that did exist and why they were there. And it was like a lot about like building your confidence and like making you realize, helping you realize that, that you really could take control of things and you could just do all the things you wanted to do, right?
It was definitely a therapy session.
Yeah, it had more of a therapy slant. And Carrie, into today, this is kind of, it is therapeutic, right? So talking to other artists is therapeutic that way. I have a social work background. I have a social work degree. And so it is something that I am trained in doing, not just that I do because I enjoy, but so yeah, it kind of, marrying that social work background with my artistic background really helps in those kind of scenarios where you're talking to other artists and trying to help them through some things that are going on with them mentally, right? So anyways, I just remember you like eventually crying in the coffee shop, right? And you were crying about stuff and like it's like you had realized some things, oh my gosh, like I've been doing this to myself. That kind of vibe, right? And yeah.
I also want to say that just as a kind of personality trait, this is just yesterday I cried because I remembered that Ryan and Marissa from the OC were just like, I don't know, it just occurred to me, what a tragic relationship. And I shed a couple tears for the OC yesterday.
That's funny. No, this happens to me though too. I mean, not just when I'm having my mental health issues, but sometimes I'll think about something. I'm like, oh my God, that's so sad.
Yes.
No,
something fictional and kind of cheesy.
Maybe you and I need to be medicated.
20 years ago.
No, just kidding. No, just kidding. But yeah, so anyways, like from that meeting, I remember watching you go through your album recording and I watched you change a bit. I did. Like, I feel like you just kind of like unleashed like your life a bit, and from everybody on the outside could see it happening. I don't know if you felt that way at the time.
No, not at all.
But it felt that way. It felt like I remember watching you record and watching you perform after that. And it was completely different than what you were before that. Like
wow.
it just looked so different.
We are so blind to ourselves.
Sometimes we are, right? Yeah. And again, like this isn't something that I just saw. Like I had talked to other people at the time about it. I'm like, whoa, like.
So maybe you're making maybe an accidental case for creative collaboration here,
right?
Because there's this self-blindness that I clearly had that I have no memory of, that other people clearly noticed and were able to coach me through in some sense. And that never would have happened if I was just trying to push through as a solo artist. Because other people act as some sort of check against, they sort of allow yourself to reflect back to you in a way that you can actually see what the problem is. And it's really difficult to do that on your own, again, unless you're some genius in the woods.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, yeah, actually that whole bouncing ideas off of somebody or bouncing back and forth, I've become resistant to that, and that's not good. Like I feel like when I'm making something new, for instance, like I don't show people to ask for their opinions on it necessarily. Although I have recently with a couple things I've done, but I don't really want to. I'm like, nah, I just want to do it my own way. But then you're right. Sometimes you might not see some of the things that somebody else sees. And there have been times where somebody has, shared something about a piece I've done, and I go, oh yeah, no, that's good. That's a good idea. I should try this, or I should do it that way. I don't know why I get resistant to that. I think it's maybe because I just feel like that I'm going to go back to where I used to be, where it would take forever, even longer to do things, because there's 5 people giving you opinions on something, right? That's just like
well, and this is one of the difficulties with collaboration.
Yeah.
I think, at least speaking for myself, I get very opinionated on my own taste. So if I make a song and I show someone that song, I'm not necessarily in the mindset that I'm showing them so that they can offer suggestions.
Exactly.
I'm like, no, this is to my taste. My taste is set. There's no changing this now. So I know that that's also, I should probably be a little bit more mentally flexible, but at least for me, that's a lot of what it is. It's like, no, I already like it. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the same way. And I've probably already spent hours and hours getting it to that point.
Believe me, I've been so much more obsessed with this than you, random listener who's offering insight. After 2 minutes, I've spent like 200 hours on this thing, you know?
But then, that 2 minutes of like objective opinion is almost like better than our 200 hours in some ways, because it's like we get lost in it, and you get narrow when you get into a project, right? And you start looking at it over and over again.
Right.
It's hard to see outside of it and see what else it could do. Right. But then the other part of that, and again, I talk about like, the issue in collaboration with like completing things. There can sometimes be real blocks to completing things when you collaborate, right? So and I think this is why us lone wolves like really get tied into that kind of creative atmosphere, because we're like, no, we know what we want, we know what it can do, we're capable of doing it, we want to finish it, and suddenly you have 5 cooks in the kitchen. And now it's like, oh, but I have to appease this one and this one and this one, and I have to do this and this, and who's going to have more say here, and blah, blah. It just becomes a totally different animal, right? It's almost political at that point, right? And so I can completely understand why some people just kind of, like myself and yourself, just get away from that at some point.
You get a lot more control. You absolutely get a lot more control. You don't have to make creative concessions when if you're in any type of democratic collaboration situation, which I think most of us are not in. Well, I mean, some people are probably in authoritarian regimes of creativity.
Oh, definitely.
But there's definitely a sense, if you're in a more democratic function, that you have to make concessions. You're not always going to agree. You're like, wow, I really like that 30-second outro, but none of you guys do, so I guess we're cutting it. And when you're on your own, you don't have to deal with any of that. You can just have perfect control. But again, I think this is one of those, collaboration is good for the person who's doing the collaboration, because I don't think it's necessarily a healthy thing to be tightly trying to control everything in your life. And in some ways, what you do with your creativity is what you do with your life. If you're trying to like wrestle your creative projects into some kind of strangulated submission, you're probably doing that just in your regular life anyway. But if you're collaborating with people, you're listening to people, you're having more of this relational give and take, which is healthier. It feels more like what a good life would feel like.
Yeah. Well, and a collaboration is a relationship. And I think that's something that people sometimes fail to realize. Like, if you're collaborating with one other person, it is like being in a monogamous relationship. There's only 2 people, and you're
and you've done that a lot, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I've done the one-on-one collaboration. Once you collaborate with like 5 people, it's like being in a polyamorous relationship. It is like honestly, like you have to like appease everybody's different emotions and ideas, and because creativity is so personal and so it can be so emotional. Everything comes out. People's insecurities come out. People's fears, people's flaws, I guess, I don't know, for lack of a better term. Like, it's just like, it all just comes out when you're in that situation. So if you're with 5 people who are really dramatic and really don't have their lives together, like, it's going to be chaos, and it's going to be hard.
Even if you're with people who are really like, they've got their lives together, it's still messy, because collaboration is always messy. And I guess this is the thing that, if you're going to collaborate with others, you have to be prepared for this. Doesn't matter like how much you have your life together, it's still really intimate, because you're going to be dealing with things that sit right in the heart. Like, it's really just a very cheesy metaphor, I suppose.
No, it's true though. Yeah. And I think the other thing too is like, there's also like new relationship energy in collaboration as well. It's the same as any other relationship, where when we first start out, it's like, this is amazing. This is going to be so great. I love our synergy. I love our ideas. And then as you get to know somebody more and you get to work with them more, that's when all the difficult stuff comes out, and it becomes hard, and you have to like work through that. You have to actually be willing to like come to the table and have an honest, peaceful discussion, not a heated discussion about these things. I guess maybe it's heated and you get over it, but yeah, you have to have some emotional maturity then to get through those pitfalls that come. This
is where you cut to us 7 months from now, just like hating each other, like, oh, Dave.
Yeah. This is anytime you hear about like like TV shows or like all these things. Like you don't know if the people actually like each other behind the scenes. Yeah. So, well,
yeah.
right now we're amicable.
Right now we're okay.
And then, you're right.
We sound very much like the jaded people who have been through a lot of relationships and who are like maybe like hopeful, but not overly idealistic about what to expect from collaboration.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good way of looking at it. I feel like I'm that way about life in general. It's like,
well, jaded. Haven't lost all the hope though.
If I had lost all the hope, I wouldn't be doing a new podcast right now, right? I wouldn't be inviting you to my house to do this and putting all this effort into like a set and like a live stream and all these things. So
it's really quite lovely what you've done.
Well, thank you. No, I'm actually quite happy with like how things have turned out so far. So I feel like, I guess the reason why I wanted to start this podcast, speaking of collaboration, is because we did a podcast episode together of this same podcast when it was in this previous format under Roman Empire Studios. So yeah, I mean, like I felt like watching that episode again, I rewatched it. I don't know when it was, maybe a few months back. And I watched it and I was like, man, like this is one of the better conversations I had on the show. And it felt like it was therapeutic. It was social. It was something that I wanted to listen to again. Like it was rewatchable. So yeah, I felt like that it seemed like the right kind of combination and the right synergy to do a podcast, because honestly, like as a lone wolf, I do feel like I'm not getting enough social time. I'm not talking enough about what I'm going through with other people. I can only do so much with my partner. Like I can't tell her everything and give her everything all the time. I mean, she's not an artist even.
It's not fair to your partner to do that either.
It's not, right? Yeah. Like you do need more sounding boards than just your partner. So it kind of like checked off a lot of those boxes. And at the same time, I just really love podcasting and streaming. So it's like I could do all these things in one shot and it just made sense. So sometimes you like evaluate a potential collaboration and you can like check the boxes of the things it will provide you, and it's not like being selfish as much as like we have needs and we have things that we want to, that bring us life, that's give us energy. And we got to do those things. We have to make time for those things, I think, more than the stuff that doesn't. And as an artist, it's really easy to get lost in the weeds and just do everything that everybody asks, even though you might not enjoy it or not get a lot out of it. Right. So
there's some aspects of collaborating with others that is sort of like self-care. It's such an obvious thing. I resist this so much. This is like my own stupidity, like my own blind spot. I am also quite solitary with what I do. So the way that I run my business is completely solo.
Right.
I don't work with anyone right now, and it means a lot of time by myself, which I like. In writing an honors paper for philosophy right now, it's a lot of time on my own, which I like, but you need that sort of like human therapy of just talking to other people. You kind of forget about how fundamental that is like being you're just an animal, right? You're just an animal who has social needs. And I think I get really introverted and I just get like kind of locked in. And even though I am introverted, I'm definitely not a happier version of myself when I'm isolated.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And it's sometimes like you talked about the blind spots. Sometimes it can take a long time to like realize that I'm at that point, right? Where I'm not happy.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not doing well.
I have to be proactive.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I feel like lately I've been feeling that a bit more. I've been feeling like, oh no, like I really don't have anybody to talk to. I really don't I don't have people in my life anymore. I'm not bouncing ideas off of people. I feel like I'm feeling more lonely as an individual and as an artist, and so it was like time to like reach out and do something different and shake it up a bit.
But it's so if you're anything like me, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk about today, I am enormously resistant to collaborating, even though I know it's really good for me, even though I know whatever I do will be 10 times better than if it's not even a question. Anything I do will be improved by working with other people. I am not so in my own, like my fairy dust that I think that what I do is that good on its own. Right. It really does. I need other people, but at the same time, I still resist it, even though I know it's really good for me. Or the idea of reaching out to people for this podcast to talk to feels like such a block, or reaching out to other musicians. Maybe I wanted to play a show as the Criminal Kid. And that's something I think about a lot, playing a live show again. But then, the enormous burden of like finding musicians, people you get along with, finding time to jam, and all of the emotional. It just seems like a big burden, even though I know that I would like it and it would be healthy for me.
Yeah.
So how do you overcome those blocks?
Yeah. I don't know. No. Honestly, though, like I do feel like I am a little bit at a loss sometimes. I think, and again, like from the outside, I look like a really social artist. If you know me, I know tons of people, and I'm like very invested in people and things like that. But again, I did that more as a business. Like it's not that I don't like a lot of these people or I don't want to work with them, but as a business, you're like forced into collaboration because I need money. This is my job. I got to do this. So I think I've collaborated a lot out of necessity more than out of desire. And so now, again, Femme Fragile is maybe the only thing I can look back on in recent like years where I've collaborated out of desire. And even that was a cautious collaboration. I picked somebody who I knew wouldn't be like super controlling over everything because I knew her well already. And stylistically, it just made sense with what I wanted. And there was a lot of like green flags, check marks. There's a lot of things there that made sense for that collaboration. So even there, I was really cautious about who I picked to collaborate with because I had lots of people wanting to. I mean, and I have in the last 10 years collaborated with tons of people on my own stuff, and nothing ever came of it, unfortunately, and not blaming anybody specifically because it was my fault as well. But so yeah, when I was picking something new, I was like, it's got to work. It's going to have to work. It's just going to have to work. And so I knew that what Shalyn would bring to the table was vocals, was writing, was kind of a little bit of enthusiasm, all these different things, but she wouldn't be like super controlling over the musical part of it. And I knew that.
This sounds exactly like how someone might be vetting relationship partners, going back to that whole idea.
Yes.
So I do think that there's a lot of value in being picky with who you're collaborating with. I'm kind of curious though. Do you feel like the way that you've found people to collaborate with has changed over the years? Do you feel like you've gotten a lot more choosy?
Oh yes.
With time?
Yeah. I've become very selective with the people I give my artistic energy to now. Outside of when I had a job, and currently I have a job that I have to give creative energy to people. Even there, I'm like, I have boundaries. Like I'm careful. So yeah, like it has changed. It's changed just because I've had a lot of experience with tons of projects.
As per relationships is the same deal.
Same thing, right? Yeah. You can't really trade, anything for that. Like you can't just learn that. Like it's something that you have to go through and understand. And you can have good ideas about how to set boundaries, but until you're in those situations, sometimes you just don't really understand before it's too late. Like maybe you get in a situation, you realize, oh, I should have set this boundary. This is not something I should be doing right now. And you're already like, 70% along the way with that thing. So
do you think for some young person, or perhaps some person who's not young, but just hasn't had any collaboration experience artistically, do you think that the route to collaborate would be more like throw yourself into projects and then with time learn how it works and get choosier? Or do you think you should be choosy at the outset? There's
probably a middle ground somewhere. I feel like there's obvious red flags out there. If you see somebody who's kind of
fur
like,
coat.
Yeah, like, I don't know, Linger, my old band, went through how many guitar players, right? But even then I can say like, we couldn't still find the flags. Like I thought there would be some flags, and there were some that were obvious that we did find. There were some members who lasted like 3 weeks, honestly, and they never even played with us. There's other members who lasted a little longer and we thought we were good and then it wasn't. So you can't always see it, I guess. You can't always see it coming. So I guess in some ways, maybe you do have to throw yourself into projects first. But yeah, if you see certain things that are really bothering you, you have to bring them to the table. Maybe that's the way of putting it. It's like, don't be quiet and passive all the time, like communicate your needs and see if you can find compromise if there's something that needs to change. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's really, I guess where I'm coming to, I'm trying to think about my past self, Allysia as a 23-year-old, just kind of, cause I sort of threw myself into projects indiscriminately. Right. But at the same time, there was always with a little bit of, I always knew the people who I was getting involved with a little bit. So, for example, the Criminal Kid, it wasn't just like a random project I threw myself into.
Yeah.
I knew, if not directly the people in the band already, just from friends of friends, I knew of them.
Right.
So they were all people who were already on my radar. I already knew that, like, okay, these people clearly don't suck as humans in like the most obvious of ways, because otherwise they wouldn't be vetted by being friends with my friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that's a really good point, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so, yeah, like I think if you're networking with people and you have some interesting artistic friends, yeah, you're right. You're going to find people that kind of are in the same kind of vibe as you, right? And so maybe that's part of it. I guess when my first ever band I started, Linger, again, I mentioned, was like friends, right? It was myself, Rob Hillstead, Nathan Binns. That was the original band, and we were good buddies at the time, and we started making music together, right? So, and then from there, trying to find other members was always challenging, but. So yeah, you're right. Friends group is a good place to look. And that's why networking is important. I think that's why like doing things that you enjoy artistically or going to shows or things like that, you're just naturally going to meet certain people, you know, that you can kind of jive with.
And even if you're not like immediately, I think one of the best things that you can do as a collaboration strategy, if I have anything to offer on that, is you're never going to go wrong with making friends with really cool people, because I don't go into my friendships with people with a sense of like, ooh, maybe we'll collaborate one day. But if you're friends with enough creative people who are cool, the collaborations just sort of happen. They sort of, or the opportunities to collaborate happen.
Yeah.
Just because you've nurtured these relationships. And I think actually, just thinking about it now, I realized that pretty much every single creative project I've ever had has been a friendship first, collaboration second, with maybe the exception of Rob, because that was like the just totally random thing. But how I got into collaborating with Rob, I was in the back seat of my friend's car, and we were, because that's what you do when you're teenagers. You live at home and you're in high school, is you just drive around a bunch.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the back of their car. I don't know where we were going, probably nowhere. And I just thought, I want to be in a band. And then I went on some like Sask music forum and posted on it, and then I was in a band. So I feel like just even taking, and the whole trajectory of my life changed because of that. This happened because of that. All of my creative projects I owe to that random instinct in a car. So don't, I guess like don't discount those moments as well, because one small decisive action can have this massive butterfly.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Actually, and this is where like I do owe my extroversion some thanks for being able to find those moments, because you know, like I was on the set of this short film called The Mud Dreams when I was first getting into film audio, and Rob Hillstead brought me on, right? So he was like, he's the one who. This is like the Rob Hillstead show.
It really is.
We're just going to bring up Rob Hillstead. He
needs a credit.
We'll have to credit you after. No, but he brought me on the show, and I knew some of the people on the set, but not really. Like these were all new people to me, and there was one particular relationship I made on that set with an artist named Michelle Serrata, rest in peace. And her and I had a lot of good conversations and kind of hit it off a bit. And from that one moment, like she suddenly introduced me to all these other things that were going on. She brought me on board for other stuff. And suddenly I was like meeting other people. And then, you know, it was kind of like it snowballed because of that one. And so obviously the initial connection was Rob, and, you know, Rob and I have been very creative together. But then Michelle was like this, she was this powerhouse in town. Like people knew her. She was one of these amazing artists who carried herself exactly the way she wanted to carry herself, wasn't compromising herself for anything. Like she was able to make a living as an artist being herself. And so she just had this energy about her in town. And once you were with Michelle and you were involved with Michelle, you were involved with all these other people. Like, you know, like it was that simple. So you're right. That one connection has led to this moment again. Like, I mean, here I am sitting doing a podcast with cameras and lighting and things like that. I knew I wouldn't have got into any of this stuff had I not been hanging out in that world. So,
and this is a flag to put up as well, that as with relationship, we might as well be giving like dating advice in this podcast.
Yeah, this is a dating podcast.
It kind of overlaps. But one of the flags to plant here is that you are not going about this with any type of needy energy. Or I've never done that either. So I'm not meeting people with this idea in the back of my mind on how I might use them. You know what I mean? I'm not giving up I don't have business cards. I'm not giving up business cards. It's really, I think these things have to be pursued. I mean, sometimes it's going to be transactional, as when you go to a random internet forum and post that you want to sing in a band. But a lot of times I think it's just going to be, again, being like kind of a cool, chill person and having, I don't know, connections to other cool, chill people who then perpetuate that. And then the opportunities come from it in a very like non-clingy way.
Yes. Actually, I like how you were talking about earlier about like meeting new people and be like, I'm just meeting them to collaborate with them. Like, it's kind of similar to like meeting people and be like, your ulterior motive is always, I'm going to date this person.
Yeah,
the relationship analogy continues.
And it doesn't feel good.
No,
as
you're
the recipient of that.
Just be chill and cool and let things flow. Yeah, it's the same. You're right. It's the same. It's like, it's so funny how parallel artistic collaboration is with
dating,
or even friendship, but I think dating more so, because it is very emotionally intimate. Right?
Yeah. And again, it's like the neediness is repulsive. So there's potential collaborators for your projects who will not want to collaborate with you if you're sort of directly trying to pull from them. You know, if I have this feeling that someone's trying to like get something out of me, I find that very yucky. And I tend to resist those kinds of relationships. Yeah. No one really wants that. People just want to know cool people and have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I because of the job I do now, I'm forced into collaboration at my job. And like usually it's fine. But there are a few people like that who come in and it's like they can't find collaboration anywhere else because they're like that, right? Yeah. They're very needy. They're very like self-centered. It's and so then they come here where it's like, hey, this is a free service. I can do whatever I want. And they figure they can do the same thing there. And so I actually have to be really careful at my current job to not allow people to overstep like my role, you know, because if I'm not careful, people could make me go sit at the soundboard, make me go do all the work for them, mix for them, master for them. And I can't do that. I'm not like, it's not my service that I provide right now is not a one-on-one service where I'm an audio engineer. It's like I'm literally a digital media specialist overseeing like a creative space, you know, and there's multiple things there. There's editing computers, there's a green screen, there's recording studio, there's all kinds of stuff.
Libraries these days are really amazing.
Shout out to the library, because honestly, if you want to get creative, the library will support you in that. But yeah, so the same thing happens there. Like I encounter these kinds of people. I encounter these people that you could say, they're needy. They kind of just suck the energy out of you, and it's not reciprocal. It's not reciprocal. And I think any healthy relationship has to have some amount of reciprocity. Even if one person's doing more heavy lifting than the other, there's still some reciprocity. There's still something going on that's like, you know, a two-way street. Because obviously some people, again, like the Femme Fragile case for my project is a good example of this uneven reciprocity, right? Like I'm the audio engineer. I'm the music producer. You know, Shalyn couldn't do all those things, but she would do the things she could. And she would show me that she could do the things she could contribute, and she would. And I was fine with that, because it wasn't like she was just relying on me to do everything.
Yeah, because you don't want that. You don't want like dead weight, someone just kind of mooching off your skills, right?
Exactly, right? And so she wasn't doing that. She was really good at like providing the things she could when she had energy, doing the things she could. So
as with being a romantic partner, if you want to have success with creative collaboration, you have to be active enough, not passive, like you said earlier, to you have to be giving as much as you're getting out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is a give and take. It is a give and take. And, you know, and sometimes you might realize after collaborating for a while on a certain thing that maybe you don't have the ability to do that give and take. Maybe you just can't. And it's better to speak up about that than it is to just let it fester forever and maybe hold the other person back. Maybe it'll lead to your own stress or things like that, right? So
it seems like one of the biggest arguments for collaborating with other people and not being the lone wolf in the basement or the woods or wherever you happen to be.
With a double lone wolves in the basement. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Is that you don't want to... I guess the main reason would be that it will have enormous ripples in your life that you can't predict. And I think maybe it's the unpredictability of it that's actually so special, because if you're in a basement trying to control everything, you're not going to allow for the moments of serendipity, which happen when there's a lot of different people in your field of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having just committing to making friends and allowing the serendipity to happen where it will is enough of a reason to not sit in a basement by yourself, because it's life. I guess we're not just talking about music or creativity. It's life itself is a lot more fun if you can't predict everything that's going to happen. There's something that's really important about having that.
That's like a really fantastic, like, we're nearing a final thought of like, yeah, exactly. Like the unpredictability is what gives it
life.
Yeah. And like, obviously you need to, be sensible and make good decisions and things like that. But yeah, like,
yeah, we're not talking about like edgy, unpredictable,
exactly.
like, oh, I'm going to jump off this building or something.
I'm going to do all these drugs and then see what kind of idea I come up with. Like, which fine if you want to do that.
No, just like just literally all you have to do is be a human and know other humans. And that's like the field that's needed for unpredictability. That's it.
But some of the best artistic things you create are in that spontaneity, right? Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm sure I could go back thinking on the endless catalog of things I've done and I could find those moments. The song "Shine Through" by Linger, which I'm sure you know.
I do. Yes.
If you've never heard it, go on.
Shine through.
That whole thing. We wrote that in about 5 minutes. The whole thing. From front to back.
Did you just jam it out once?
Yep, we jammed it out. I wrote it, and like we barely tweaked it after that. Like the final version is more produced because we were in a studio, but the actual like bones of that song never changed.
That's hilarious.
And it was like one of those like, I guess whether people like that song or not, it was one of those moments where it was like it was there, it was spontaneous, and it happened, and there it is. And could I have done that completely on my own at that time? Definitely not. So. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. I don't think I've ever written a song that quickly. I've definitely written a song in an evening, but in terms of a single jam session.
Yeah, like we recorded the first jam through of it, and I was like, "That's a song." There it is.
Actually, I should note also, at risk of interrupting perhaps a more poetic final thought with something a little bit more mundane. I've done 2 albums with the Criminal Kid, and there's a really big difference in both of them in terms of the style of collaboration, but both required collaboration. So the first album was a democratic 4-band member kind of deal. We were all kind of 25% in, equal members of songwriting. The guitarist would bring in ideas, I'd bring in ideas, even the drummer would bring in ideas. It happened, right?
Right.
So we would all kind of mutually write things together. But my second album was very different because I wrote all the songs. But the really important thing is that album still would have never existed if I had just sort of stopped with myself, because I wrote the songs in a sort of very simple piano vocal kind of way. But importantly, I collaborated with 3 other people. I think 4, maybe 4. Yeah, it was mostly 3, but with a couple like yourself would be one of the 4th. And,
I make a guest appearance.
You make a guest appearance in Natural Feelings. You did like pretty much all the music for that.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. But you did a lot of the ideas as well. But the point is even though that was not that was all on my steam, it would have been nothing without Rob's guitar. And same Rob.
Same Rob.
It's a Rob episode.
It's the Rob Hillstead appreciation.
Or Chris Demas, who is just a wonderful person and a really good, good sound recorder, audio engineer. But he threw in like random drums and guitar parts and just really creatively involved as well. And obviously Mike on drums. So everyone sort of orbited around the project, but it would have not happened without them into something that I would have been proud of.
Yeah, 100. Yeah. And actually, I really like the vibe of that album collaboratively, because like, even though you're right, even though you were a lone wolf, you did make a lot of efforts to like realize these are my blind spots and this is what I can't do, and I need these people to help, do these different things. And that's, it's like a really good example of that lone wolf coming out and and grabbing collaborators to help them with their thing, right? So I'm kind of like in that boat right now, trying to make a new album where I'm like, who do I bring in? Because I could technically do all of it. I could actually.
This guy can do everything. Like, for those of you who don't know Dave, he can play drums, he can play guitar, he can play bass, he can sing, he can audio record, he can do all the kind of backstage magic too.
I'm a big MIDI programmer. Like, I feel like that's my biggest strength too. Like I can write a symphony or a piano piece. I don't have to perform it really well. I can, if I don't perform it well, I can just program it.
Yeah.
So
fair.
it kind of changes. I guess for me, I've gotten so self-sufficient that I don't have a lot of like blind spots where I'm like, I need somebody. I blind spots, maybe not the word. I don't know, but a lot of I just don't have need for other people to actually be involved when it comes down to it. Like I could 100% do anything I want.
Yeah.
Sonically.
Well, and that's
with
actually,
nobody else.
And that's actually like, I think an important difference between the way in which we collaborate or the way in which we are artists, because I can't. I've not invested in those skills to be self-sufficient on my own, but you have.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it's maybe even harder for you to resist the tug of lone wolf syndrome.
That's what I'm saying. I almost like, that's why I kind of like the vibe of your album is because I feel like because you have that kind of scenario, it does like force you when you want to do something like that to bring other people on board. Right. And it's like, you still get to, I think you were still the, obviously the key contributor in terms of writing the core of the song and lyrics and things like that. So it is your thing. Right. But then having to bring other people on board makes it what it is. And for me, I struggle with bringing anybody on board. Yeah, you're right. I some of my songs, like, I think I like them. Don't get me wrong. They're good. But I don't have any other lens on them besides mine.
Yeah.
And maybe they are exactly what I want them to be. And maybe that's fine. And I'm not saying you can do things by yourself. You can. It's fine if you want to, and that's what you want to do.
But there's nothing unexpected about it.
There's nothing unexpected about it. Yeah. It's the only thing that can really be unexpected is if you're like, jamming out something and you come up with something.
Oh, that's always fun.
That's always fun.
But where'd this come from?
Yeah, but other than that, it isn't unexpected. It's very thought out. Like, I mean, I do like to like load up synthesizers or new effects and play with them in a song and see, oh, what is this going to do there? What is this? What if this piece was played by this 80s synth? What would it sound like? That kind of stuff. So there's a little bit of unpredictability there, but again, yeah, it's all my vision. It's all my thing. And it can still be good that way. Don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be maybe as unique as it could be. Maybe that's one thing. It's not going to be, sometimes it can feel like it's just one person doing it all. It can feel that way. And I try my hardest not to make it sound like that. And I think I succeed for the most part. I probably have tricked a lot of people into thinking that other performers are involved. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of almost dismantling my case for collaboration right now, but at the same time, I see the benefits to both. I think I need the benefits that collaboration provides right now. Specifically, I'm needing that.
Well, I don't think you're completely disintegrating the case for it. I think you are self-sufficient. But yet, even though you've spent all this time and effort developing all these skills that allow you to be self-sufficient, you still have a desire for a drive to work with others sometimes in whatever capacity that might be. Sometimes you have enormous freedom in that respect, because that means you can go on your own and that can be awesome. And you can go with others and that can also be awesome.
You're right. I have a choice.
Yeah.
I have a choice. Yeah. But definitely, I need people. Are you right there? No, just kidding. I do.
Heavy breathing.
Heavy breathing. I need you. No, I needed this. I needed this collaboration. This is like a good way to like keep myself collaborating with somebody regularly. So
get out of the basement. Get out of the basement, whoever you are. Get out of the basement.
Yeah,
Make
or invite somebody to your basement.
Oh yes, that's what you've done.
That's what I've done here.
I am in a basement.
We
right
are
now.
in a basement.
Yeah. And you might not be able to tell from the video, but we're actually in the same basement.
We're in the same basement. Yeah, we are. So I mean, should be self-explanatory, but I don't know.
Well, I guess the wall's kind of the same tone, but we have totally different backgrounds.
Yes.
Yeah. So on that note, is it time to segue to our final section? Are we calling them sections?
Yeah, I don't know. A segment.
Segment.
This is a segment. Sure, this is a segment. Yeah. So we do want to add segments to our podcast. So
yes.
This is Alicia's segment. Take it away.
Yeah, it's mine. So we're going to be doing an artist spotlight, and we'll change the segment depending on who we're going to be interviewing, what the podcast is about. If you're sticking around for the next episode, Dave's going to have a segment, which is going to be different than this one. But I'm going to do an artist spotlight. And I'm going to not recommend an artist who's really obscure and awesome. And I feel like I will do that one day. But today is not the day I do that. Today is the day I recommend an album that I've been listening to a lot. And it just happens to be one of the most I don't know, popular albums of the moment right
Right.
now. So it's definitely the pop zeitgeist here. It is Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish, which came out on May 17th this year. So just not even, I guess it's about a month old. And I don't know if you, dear viewer, or you, Dave, have listened to Billie Eilish's previous albums.
Lot.
But
Quite a bit.
Yeah. So I feel like she's just, I should say her and Phineas work together.
Yes.
That's another
there's
collaboration. It's a duo. Yeah.
Brother, sister.
Yeah. They've just had, I feel like, 3 hits in a row. Like this is another really good album. And I think the things that I like about it are even more contrasted against the other music that's being released right now. I'm not going to name names, but there's like some really popular music that's been released lately in the same kind of time. And they stand in stark contrast to each other. Because this
Should I name names? No, just kidding.
Should I name names?
No, just kidding.
Well, I don't want to. I mean,
okay.
everyone likes what they want to like. But what I like about this album is that it feels fresh, playful, and experimental, but still heartfelt.
Right.
So it doesn't feel stagey or contrived or like it's targeting an audience. It doesn't feel stale, like it's kind of the same thing they've been doing all along. It takes risks in a way that feel like they give you a payoff, as opposed to the kind of risk that's maybe like a vapid lyric that doesn't quite land. I just feel there's something that's like sincere and fresh, but not too serious, even in the serious moments. Because as you know, if you've listened to other Billie Eilish albums, like Happier Than Ever is really good for this as well. There's some really like dark songs.
Oh yeah.
And that's part of the appeal. But even though there's some dark music on this album, there's still sort of this feeling of like freshness or optimism.
Okay.
Which I really quite like. So I'm going to recommend a few tracks right now because, and actually if you go to our Instagram, which is Creative Colosseum on Instagram, you can find us that way. I posted these songs on our stories if you want to check them out if you're happening to watch this.
Yes, if you're watching live, because if you listen to the podcast, they will no longer be there.
Otherwise, you got to go deal with it on your own. I really like the song Lunch. It's like cheerful and playful and horny. It's just this like it's a silly little song. It's so cute, and it kind of embodies that sort of playful optimism that I'm not hearing in other artists who have just released an album in the last few weeks.
Okay.
So that's really cool. But there's also some really beautiful, moving, heartfelt, moody pieces. Like Wildflower is really good, and Blue has the same vibe, which would be the last track. There's also this genre manipulation. So they'll go from EDM kind of vibe in a couple of their songs to 80s Whitney Houston. There's one song called Birds of a Feather, and it sounds like it was made in the 80s somehow, but it's like cheesy but like lovely at the same time. It's really cool. And then they'll go to like stadium rock. There's one song called, it's cool. It's called The Greatest. The lyrics are hilarious, by the way. It's basically like, these aren't the lyrics verbatim, but the personality of the song is, I'm so like, I listen so well and I'm so sensitive and I'm always there for you. Aren't I the greatest? You know,
that's amazing.
It's amazing. And it also is the biggest vocally song on the album. So it's got this whole stadium rock anthem vibe in it. One thing this album also does that's kind of fun is it'll start one way and end another. So you're getting like the first half of the song, you're in this kind of French cafe vibe. And then all of a sudden the second half is EDM. So there's these, I feel like it just goes with the title, Hit Me Hard and Soft. There's this sort of constant sort of up and down swelling of the album in a way that's really organic. There's not a lot of like sudden change. It's very much like this sort of, everything is very like organically taking you up and down on this ride.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a really cool album.
Yeah, I haven't had the time to check it out yet, but I am a Billie Eilish fan. So I do think that the work she does, like especially the stuff she did earlier, when she first was coming out, it's like it did shift a lot of things in the industry, like from an engineering standpoint specifically.
Very anti-pop.
Yeah, it was at first, right? Just the kinds of like she went back to using like dry mixes, and there was weird panning and effects things going on that other pop artists weren't doing. So yeah, she definitely shifted the industry a lot in terms of what we were doing, and I think now I think you're kind of seeing some of the aftermath of that. Like I feel like the music that's becoming popular now has gone in a lot of different directions. Like rock has kind of made a reappearance a little bit in some albums, and just guitar licks and things like that. And I mean, not to where it was, obviously, but
She does seem really good though at resisting the some of the trappings of pop music so far.
Exactly.
Like I guess I don't know the vibe I get from her. She's like a little dorky.
She is dorky.
You know,
as
and
dark
it's like,
as she is, she's dorky.
Yeah, but it's like very lovable because it makes her seem like she's a real person. She's not just like a stage, like a stagecraft.
And that is like the modern industry. Like people have to connect with you individually. It's not like before where you were like some strange, like mysterious person that you could never have any real like connection to. Now it's like, here's my social media and you know everything about me and I want you to love me as a person, like not just my music. My music's almost second. And she definitely embodied that, not like necessarily in a...
But she just seems kind of normal, I guess.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Like I don't mean this in like a not pretentious, but like maybe disingenuine kind of way. Like, I mean, she really... like that's just who she is. And so she can put her life out there and put herself out there and you want to connect with that. Like it's easy to like her,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, I feel like it stands in contrast, but I'm not typically, so in future, if I recommend artists in the future, it might not always be like the biggest, among the biggest names in pop music, but just happened to be, this is what I was listening to this week. So that's the one. Definitely check it out. Hit Me Hard to Stop by Billie Eilish.
I'll be there. I'll check it out. Well, anyway, I think that's going to wrap up the first episode. For those of you watching the live stream, stick around. There's another episode to come. For those of you listening to the podcast, this is where this episode ends.
Yes, and you will see or hear the next one in about a week.
Yeah. So thank you for coming by, and thanks for having a discussion with us. Please go check us out on our socials. We are on YouTube. We are on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on Facebook. All the same username at Creative Colosseum. And then we were also on Twitch as well, Creative Colosseum.
You might have to look up in your dictionary. Who are you? Are you? Well, some people out there probably have dictionaries. I just realized that there's probably some people who are like, what's a dictionary?
What's a dictionary? What is that? You mean Google it?
Yeah, Google is the new dictionary.
But
I know I had to double check the spelling.
Yeah, Colosseum. Our spelling is COLOSSEUM, which is I don't know if that's UK English. I don't know. It seems to be the proper way to spell it because there's another way with an I that I don't know. I don't know where that comes from.
And only one S.
And
that one's weird.
I don't understand.
We avoid that spelling.
We avoided that one. I used what the internet told me to do. So
not your old-fashioned dictionary.
Yes. Anyway, so yes, please go check us out. Like and subscribe. Do all the things you want to do so you can never miss an episode. We're going to be doing the live stream every second Sunday. And then we're going to try to drop individual episodes every week from the live stream.
Thanks for joining.